welcome back to Comic Beyond. In this episode, we're covering Mindhunter, Witchblade versus aliens, Darkness versus predators, and together they fight to stop Irons, a Witchblade villain. So the story starts off where Sarah, the Witchblade, she's undercover and she's investigating somebody, but then while she's undercover, her investigation kind of gets foiled because the Darkness shows up, and he was actually hired to take out her target that she's undercover investigating. So they end up running into each other, and they're bickering back and forth because he wants to take him out, and she's like, "No, you can't do that because I'm on an assignment." But while they're bickering back and forth, her target goes into the bathroom, and he's like coughing up blood and stuff and holding his chest. So immediately, since, the aliens are in this book, we know what's happening to him. So come to find out, he actually has a chest burster in him. And so he comes out of the bathroom, and he's got a gun, and he's all kind of out of his mind. And then the chest burster pops out and comes at him. And of course, they're like, oh, not again, because of the last story they were in. But then they're taken by Irons, and they're kind of put in like an illusion. And they're seeing, face huggers all around them, and xenomorphs, and predators, and stuff like that. And, he thinks that's their greatest fear, is, the aliens and the predators and stuff. So Irons has got them, at the time, trapped in, this illusion, and, thinking that he's turning their fears against them. But, they start fighting back towards Irons, and, chewing him out, pretty much, and, calling his bluff. So he ends up taking them out of the illusion. They wake up and they're actually hooked up to these machines. They're on some kind of space station now. And so they get loose and they're of course, Darkness, he's like, dude, I can't believe this is happening again. We got aliens and probably we got predators on this thing with us. And he's like, I thought we wiped them out before. And he's like, Irons, he's like, you fought him before, you know what he's about, you can probably fight him again. And she's like, no, together we can stop him, but right now we got bigger problems. And then the xenomorphs start coming out, and so they got to fight them off. And then, so they're, going on against Irons, and they're like, well, maybe the predator that's on board, it doesn't seem to be attacking us. Maybe it wants, the same thing we want, and just to take out the aliens. Well, we'll come to find out, I don't know how Sarah figured this out, the Witchblade, but the predator in this story is actually a female predator, and that's something I've never seen before, up until I read this book. And I'm sure they've been out there in, predator canon. So they're fighting it off, and they're so well, I think it's on our side. So they get from Irons' grasp, and then they're like, we got to get off the station. So they're like, well, there's probably some kind of escape pod or some kind of shuttle we can take. So they're running, they're fighting off xenomorphs. Well, if you know the Darkness character, he has these little demon minion people that kind of surround him and help him out. Well, one of them actually gets sidetracked, I guess. He kind of gets left behind in the scramble, and he ends up getting a face hugger. Well, of course, aliens, what the face huggers, you know what they're about. So that happens to him, and then we meet back up with the Witchblade and Darkness, and they're fighting off xenomorphs. Well, they get to a shuttle pod, right? And so he's telling Sarah, get in, save yourself. He's trying to get the door shut. Well, when he does, all of a sudden you see two blades stop the door from shutting, and that's the predator. Well, the predator gets in the the escape spacecraft with him, and they're like, oh, oh crap, whatever, they're gonna fight him. Well, his little demon thing that got the face hugger was on there, and so it's now, how when a facehugger attaches to any life form, it kind of takes on the physique or whatever of that life form. So kind of like in the Alien Batman crossover where the facehugger got on a crocodile. Well, then you had an alien crocodile hybrid. So in this, you have kind of like a xenomorph demon hybrid. And they figure it out. They're like, oh my god, it kind of merged with the power of the darkness. So they're fighting this thing off along with the Predator. And so the fight ensues. And then the Predator ends up helping them win, killing the Xenomorph. But before they're heading back to Earth, like they're plummeting into the Earth's atmosphere. So before they get back, the Predator actually starts setting off or prepping the detonator on their arm because once they've as an honor thing, if they're wounded or dying, I guess they just rather nuke themselves. So rather than go back to Earth with the Witchblade and darkness, the Predator actually sets off the bomb and jets itself out and then explodes. And so Witchblade and of course Darkness survive, but Irons is still, I guess, technically out there because they didn't defeat him. It was just they foiled his plan of turning their fears against him using the aliens. So they're heading back to Earth, and then Witchblade and Darkness kind of share a moment. And then in the last book, if you want to go back and check our video out, so in the last book, he teased her. She's wanting him to change his ways because he's kind of like an anti-hero. He's kind of a criminal, but also does some good. And she's always wanting him to change his ways. That's part of their relationship. Well, he says, if you sleep with me, I'll consider changing or whatever. So just as a joke and a nod back to the last story, he asked her as her going back to Earth. He's like, or I think she asked him. She's like, so if I actually slept with you, were you actually going to change? And he's like, oh, I guess we'll never know. Blah 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 blah. And so that's how the book ends. It's only a 3-issue miniseries. The book I got is actually a prestige format, and it kind of collects the 3 issues together. I guess you can consider it a trade paperback, but when it's that small, to me, it's not really a trade. It's just more of it's more of like a collection book, I guess, prestige format. But the weird thing about the book, if you read the one I got on the back when it's kind of giving the synopsis, it says for the first time ever, the crossover between Dark Horse Comics and Top Cow. So, that being said, this is actually the sequel to Overkill. And if you read those issues, it's a 2-issue miniseries. At the end of issue 2, they actually have page inserts, giving you like a preview of this book, Mindhunter. So I'm kind of confused on why they're calling this the first ever crossover of technically Overkill. The first one was the first crossover. So I'm not sure why. I'm thinking maybe they just got their information mixed up. But I saw that when I was reading this, and then I thought about it. I was starting to question myself. I'm like, well, did I read the sequel first, or is this did I get it backwards? But no, this reads as a follow-up to Overkill, just because they remember the events from that first adventure they had against the aliens and the Predator. So, that was weird, but as far as the story goes, I kind of dug the first one a little bit better. This one's not a bad story, it just was a little bit different, and it wasn't really alien Predator heavy, it was more alien heavy if you ask me. I did like the idea of having a female Predator. Again, I've never seen that up until this book. So that was cool. The artwork's good. I like the artwork a little bit better in the first book. But the artwork still works in this. This has more of like that late 90s, early 2000s artwork that we were getting. And it has a little more of like, to me, like animation style art. So the book itself's not bad. It's worth checking out. To me, these are almost kind of hard to find, especially like this prestige one like I got. You could probably find the single issues if you want to track those down. Not sure. Comixology has a lot of stuff, so it's probably on Comixology if you want to check it out. But the other significance of this episode is this is our tie-up. This is the final episode we're doing for the Alien Predator superhero crossover little event we were supposed to do over the summer, but it's kind of slowly going into September. So I wanted to go ahead and knock this episode out, go ahead and do this as a bookend, because we started it with Overkill. So I'm just finishing it with the sequel to that, with Mindhunter. Yeah, they're fun reads, and there's a lot more Predator crossover comics out there. There's still some I have that I didn't cover. I'm just saving them for later. Um, there's one that I want to kind of cover because to me it would make sense, but it's actually Predator meets Tarzan. So to me that, jungle setting, both of them are, so to me that makes sense. So down the road, we're probably going to cover that. So there's a lot more to come with that stuff. Stay tuned. DC actually did do more crossovers with Dark Horse, so we might cover some of that stuff down the road. But I just kind of wanted to finish up our event. That way we can move on to some more fun stuff and talk about that. But I hope you liked this episode. I hope you check it out, and if you do, leave comments. If you thought this episode was cool, leave comments. That's always fun to read. And until next time, I'll talk to you later.